My name is Domininkas Virbickas. I'm Vice President of R&D at Kujo AI. And for the last 8 years, I've been involved in managing teams, leading who were involved with product or service development that had firmware and cloud parts. So currently, we're working at Kujo AI with the aim to personalize, secure, and make your connected experience private. And a lot of my topic today, the experiences come from latest endeavors while working with the biggest, largest network operators in the United States. So small company serving a giant, I will be covering how a company can work with much larger company and how your technology can go live into millions, into big scale. So two things that I'll be covering today is that one part is the innovation-orientated structure. So how we found innovation to be not a side product, but actually a cautious decision how we innovate and invest in that, and how we deliver. Because without that, without delivery to mass scale, your innovations are just in your computer or in local playground. And why I'm covering this in tech conference, you may ask, and I see that there's an old perception that sales, other company structures, other people in the company, they take care of that, and we as engineers, we work only on a code or to making it work, but all the software leaders, team leads, senior engineers, developers, should be aware of the success of the company, and they should be aware of their role, and that role is a key if you want to make it to big scale. All right, so how to innovate and deliver. This has been a dilemma in my experience, is that it's easy on one side to go and work on new things constantly, without ability to deliver them at scale. If you're working with B2B or if you're working to B2C, you have that control. But if you're working on a really innovative stuff, an engine that you want other companies to use, on one side, you can concentrate on that. On the other side, it's sometimes easy to go to that delivery mode. You just comply with what the company says, and you start delivering your code, and you end up just delivering the basic product, some UI changes without no resources or time to actually bring in new innovations, because that's hard. That messes up everything that you have built, which was stable. So we found this to be, that problem to be fundamental in our ability to actually deliver to mass scale and to do that constantly. So what I'm covering, what do I mean by giant companies? Why this is a difference in that perspective? I took a comparison. The largest companies in Lithuania that you may work with or not are like, I think all of them are less than 2 billion net worth. Compared to Lithuanians' budget in 2019, if they don't screw it up, it's going to be around 20 billion. The largest, those companies that I work with, and I took Comcast as one, they may be net worth about $200 billion. So this is basically, I'm talking about the top half of Fortune 500 companies, and they have significant rules, and they have significant demands, and we tend to find a way how to be able to deliver to them and bring them innovations in a constant way. So I'll be generalizing here, and don't blame me for that. Your organization might look different, but I will tell my perception of it. I worked in companies where technology team is always behind sales, customer support, whatever it is there, to be able to feel safe, to code on your stuff, to actually deliver, but then all the requirements, all the interactions, communications, well, that's not for engineers. That's they need to deal with that. They need to bring us the requirements, and we need to concentrate on what we do best. And I see it as a bad example. There are always miscommunication. There is a lack of trust. Sales tend to oversell, and there is no technology face, or only that technology face is might be your leadership that's communicating to the client. So that brings a lot of problems, I see. And if you have a great technology, well, that's not enough to pursue those companies to work with you. If you have a great product or service, that's still not enough, because they need to see a lot more from you. Domain owners are needed. This is what we'll be covering today a bit more in depth. What are domain owners? Very often, those domain owners are the same engineers that if you're working with an application that does something, there is a certain competition, there are certain problems in that area, there are certain challenges, not technical, but the domain requires you to be aware of those. And very often we tend to bring that to product owners or Scrum teams itself, like you have to figure out there's a problem and you have to figure out the solution. Well, we found that it's quite difficult to have that in-depth knowledge of your domain and still be able to have in-depth knowledge of how that solution is built, how you work. If we work on microservices, if you're working on UI, or you work on databases, then we want you to be an expert in that, and you specialize in that, so somebody else can take care of the problems that you solve, or the surrounding domain. Innovation cannot be a side product. I'll be covering that. It's very often we see that the same teams that build the applications, that run them, that deploy, that basically the main Scrum teams are expected also to bring new things, and a lot of context switching comes in place, and this comes as a struggle for both parties who expect and or for the teams that we work with. Delivery is a crucial part, so I'll be covering that as what does delivery do, and what is their role, and how you can actually rely on them to bring your code to mass markets. And separation of responsibilities in tech department. So this is something, a key thing, that there's no one technology or R&D or development in the company. There must be, if you're a real true technology company, then there must be several teams that work on with different responsibilities, but on the technical domain. So how innovation funnel works, and I took an example here that how we solve the problems using machine learning. If we have a problem on the left side here, we ask the right questions, we do the research, and we do the ideation, and then we do the proof of concept. And we found that about 20% of those researches that we do with machine learning only pass to the design phase. So the problem might be there, but solutions to those problems, there are many. And to do that job, to actually identify those solutions, work on those, and to be able to pass them and make a proof of concept is crucial. And why we have separate teams who does that. This is not, oh, I can use a laser. No, I cannot. So we have teams that work on that part, that make the research and POCs, and then we have different teams that work on the design, and then that to take it to mass production. And even though that you have passed that 20% does not even prove that you're going to be successful. We had one project where we have developed an engine to detect bullying messages in social media. And parents could be alerted if their kids get bullying messages or content related to sexual harassment. And the engine was great. It was very promising, but we could not get to launch because the opt-in or the ability to extract the data was too difficult to get to the source. So we had to drop it. Even though that we did all the right things, sometimes you just don't go to launch if you don't have all the pieces in together. So how we found this to be structured, and how do we divide responsibilities, and how then you can concentrate on what do you need to do. So the first part, as you can see, we have delivery departments. That's something that comes from at least network operator industry as a common thing. We have departments that work usually are co-located with the customer, but those are technology departments. These are the people that are project managers, they're QAs, they're solution architects, they're technical delivery managers, etc. So these are full teams that can take care of the client and be your technology representative there. If it's overseas, then it's one thing, they need to be on site. If it's here local, you have to dedicated people. It's a nightmare when you try to get the main development teams to do all that interaction and communication with the clients. When those clients are giants, as I spoke before, this role is a key thing for your successful deliveries, for your successful communication, project planning, and delivery. Other things we have labs, R&D, tech office, and DevOps, and let me cover those. What are responsibilities of those departments? So we have a separate technology department called laboratories, and then labs, in short, that are responsible and are those domain owners that I mentioned before for the specific products or services. So if we have several products or one, it's wise to allocate people in a separate team to actually work on those as domain owners. What do? They look at the problems that you are facing right now. If there are new challenges in that domain you want to solve, those teams are solving that. There are data scientists, there are hackers, there are developers, curious people in general that get problems and they solve them. What also they do is that they look at the domain itself, they look for challenges and problems that may occur in the field. For example, that's very common with the security industry. You have a security lab that's looking for the new threats that are coming, and then they are the team that figure out that up front. There might be challenges in protocols coming up. There might be encryptions, etc., that might disturb your main flow, and these are the teams to work on those, to foresee those problems and to work on those problems. So that's a key thing that I've never seen in Lithuania being done before, is that you have separate teams working on domains for different solutions, and those teams can dedicate their full time. They can bake POCs. They are coders, so they can make a POC and present to the client what is their solution for specific problems. Delivery part is that here, what I mentioned before, is that the company is facing engineers that don't need to do content switch from the main work. The main work is to manage the client from the technology perspective. They also have the project management responsibilities inwards and outwards. So again, that's your shield. If you work in development, that's your shield towards the customer. So you're able to get a very quality user stories or quality requirements from them. R&D, well, that's the core. The development teams, the Scrum teams, ideally they're end-to-end, as we all wish to be, but in reality it's not like that ever. So those are teams that are dependent to each other, but they have to co-work and they need to find a way to make the same releases to the client. And I'll be covering DevOps, how that responsibility is taken there. Tech office is it's the newest thing in our structure, is that we found that to have a separate team where we have senior software engineers, we have senior architects working on new projects, not only on domain problems, but on new projects and new frameworks if needed. And those teams are not bound by what we use right now in production. Those teams are looking for all the newest frameworks, what we need to use. And they bake a project, they make it live, and with those teams we can check if the project is viable in perception of the client. If it is, then we can move it to the main development stream and bake it, do development on that, and make constant releases. So that's a separate, I think a research department that focuses on technology. In such cases, again, no content switching for the main teams. We can be agile in here. And DevOps. So, I'm not going to be covering all the topologies between DevOps and development. There are several. There is a promised land where teams can execute and develop and actually deploy their code in the large infrastructures with a lot of compliance regulations. It is much more difficult to do that, so we have a separate team that's actually operational, and then they do deployments. But the key thing and key impactor here is that those teams are developing the infrastructure as a code. So they are developing or configuring the tools for us to be able to deliver this as a code, because reliability on the and reduce of manual work is the key thing here for those teams to stay small, but also to stay in the development area. And those tools that they develop, all other teams are using to build up the environments, test it, decommission. Other things that surrounding that relationship when you're working with the huge clients is that management and compliance that cannot be forgotten, and that's a key thing here also, is that even though that you have agile coach in your company, or you're moving towards agile, or you're changing it, the reality of the world is that large companies, enterprises, they work on a hardcore waterfall. So you have to comply with that, and there is no way around it. They have plans for 2 years. They have plans when everything needs to be ready for testing and when everything needs to be ready for deployment. And then, well, we can do Scrum and Agile in your teams and to reach those goals. But again, realities of the world is that it's not that agile at the top when it's more agile at the bottom. So. And compliance, well, that's an interesting one. With all the ISO certifications that your companies might be doing for one or the other reason, there are a bunch of compliance regulations that come from those companies, and those privacy-related regulations like GDPR or CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, they add more on top. And the trick here is there's no trick. You have to just invest time and actually comply to those. So, ta-da! And that's, again, that's a very good tendency to have separate people who are focusing on that and who try to manage those compliance requirements in order to see the overlaps and to form the internal compliance regulation in the company, and then for all the teams to do their work to make at the end of the day, your software should be secure, reliable, and should work at scale. So those compliance, they do not harm. They just add a lot of unnecessary wording that could be handled by few people. Oh, you can ask now.
Regarding compliance, like from an engineer standpoint, it does seem like, as you said, extra work that could be just not done at all. Do you find it hard to find people who will stay in that role? Because if I understand, you have separate departments, separate people who work on that. Don't they get tired working on that too long?
Well, on compliance, we have people that are more on do the due diligence and paperwork on making sure that everything matches, and then they present the outcome or the accumulated result to development teams. All the teams must comply. For example, there must be some security measures to be taken some access rules when you're accessing some production environments. Well, the same teams that does that, they need to change their process or change their tooling in order to comply. And that governance or compliance people, they just take care of all the wording, and they present you I could say, better, like a human readable form what you need to do.
So they're not engineers per se.
No. An engineer would die in that role. But that's life, and I think that I've been trying to avoid those for some time, but now I see that it's just inevitable. The world is going to a regularity place, especially with privacy, and some of those help you to work more. Like some of those overlap with your internal needs to make your environments more secure. But I don't know if you would be extracting data models for your platform in order to understand where do you store the personal identifiable information. Well, that you need to do that for the compliance. One thing that regarding, I didn't speak about the client side, but one interesting thing that we found is that working with those giant companies in the world, they tend to have a smaller departments in their companies that are responsible for advanced technologies. And then those advanced technology departments speak to you as a advanced technology vendor. So that's a bridge to success. Like that internal department can understand you, can allow you a lot of mistakes, and can allow you to be not at scale, can allow you to be maybe miss something, but then they actually take you in, integrate you, teach you the language that you need to speak, teach you, like bring you to the level that they expect you at the company, and then let you to the main core. We have seen that several times. And they want to, why they have these departments, because they want innovative companies, small innovative companies to be able to work with them, because those giants are slow. They're terribly slow, and they understand that they cannot move faster. And those smaller departments, they have more freedom, whereas we have to be, so at the end of the day, those companies like ours, when we're serving those giants, we cannot be late or be a dependency to anything, because they have their own dependencies already, and they expect you to be extremely fast and not to slow down. And usually they keep you at a distance, so you can keep your pace and keep delivering the innovations that they need, solutions, so they can actually try to use that pace to accelerate. That's the idea. In reality, it does not just, they take in what you generate, and they just consume it in their slow process. To summarize, technology should not or does not have to be owned by one department. This is a shared responsibility, and well, technology-oriented companies could distribute their responsibilities. Dedicated investment in research and to produce innovation, that's not an accident. Dedicated people looking at domain problems, existing problems, foreseeable problems. And of course, with innovation, there's a culture of making patents that's not still very popular in Lithuania, but it will come. And if you're working in the United States, or you think about working in the United States, I've faced many times before where companies developing here have a success all around the world, enter the United States market, and the second week of some show, somebody shows with a bunch of papers in their hotel that you filed, well, breached their patent. So patenting what you have done is crucial, and not Lithuanian patents, American. Those Lithuanian ones are just paperwork. And giant companies require extra delivery. Yeah. So if you want to keep your development teams safe, concentrate on what do they do. If they work on scalable applications, wherever the field needs to be, you have to surround them by other technology departments, other technology roles, to be able to avoid content switching and require them with things that they don't want to do. Oh, that's it. Any questions? Well, no. Well, it's we're working on a network security to be able to protect household and especially IoT devices. Security world has come from antiviruses that you have in a computer, and we're not substituting that. What your smart fridge or your Nest camera does not have is antivirus. And what we provide, and we are deployed right now in the United States in 20 million homes. So we provide network security. We see how device behaves in the network, and we see millions of those devices, and 500 millions right now. And we understand the patterns, so we can say what's bad, what's wrong, and without we don't decrypt. We look at the network data to identify what kind of device is that and how it should behave, and we can protect from various attack vectors. DDoS, remote access, if they're a bad website, visiting a malicious IP, etc.
So who's benefiting from that? Is that the household who
Yeah.
gets a notification, hey, you're using a device that does not have a GPS?
No. Well, if you would send this message to somebody in the United States, they would say like, "Who? What? What's HTTPS?" So, basically, yeah. So,
Want to listen to your baby right now, and you need to change your device.
yeah. So, yeah. Basically, we capture that and then we block that behavior if that's malicious behavior. We notify the user in the terms of reports or accumulated data that hey, there has been these accidents in your household. We took care of that. If we find a device, and what we're launching next year is that active scanning, so we can understand if there are like CVEs matches your network devices, that we can alert you on remediation, what to do. But that's usually consumers are crazy lazy and they just want what they are happy about to pay is that we block this, you're safe. That's all they want to know. In case they want, in case you want to do them a software update on a Nest camera, then good luck. I say. I think that we've been seeing that if you're informing a customer, hey, your camera has been breached, but we are able to actually block the connections because work at the connection level. Basically, each net flow is analyzed if it's malicious or not, and we block the certain connections, but we keep the same performance or the feature of the camera intact. So basically, you can keep blocking that things forever, and the user can use it even though it's infected, but it just cannot reach the command and control center. And people find it fine to be that setup in their house.
What would you have to change in your structural organization process if you had a second guy?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, then you multiply delivery teams. What we did, then you have separate delivery teams, but then those internal teams, they don't need to change. And we're working with several already. Well, 3 in North America, and starting in Europe. So the core teams, they do what they do. They have more problems, they have more people, but they can stay intact. But delivery teams, they need to be, multiplied, and very often, serving 1 or 2 clients only. Anybody else? All right. Thank you. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
How do you deal with conflict between those delivery teams? Because, okay, one delivery team needs a product, another one needs the same, a little different product, but from the same technical team, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, we still have product owners that act as gatekeepers and prioritize the backlog. Of course, there are management steering groups that prioritize what we work on. If that we see that your product, we as every company, we try to make a product as universal as possible with huge config files so you can actually adjust it, and that's what delivery teams can do. They can actually make those adjustments, even though there's not even the administration portal, even on the server level, they are technical enough to do that. If we need to develop new things, then yeah, prioritization as product owners will be holding that ground and understanding if that's in our interest to do that. All right, thank you very much.